Luis Lopez here. This is going to coincide with the assignment that you have for Module 2. You should see that you have a link to a great spot um, to get multi-tracks for your sessions to practice on. I'm just asking you to go there and download whatever one suits your fancy, as long as it's between 15 to 25 tracks, right? We want to make sure that we have enough material, but we also don't want to overwhelm ourselves either. So I think that's a good spot to start. Ooh, nice little burp there. We're gonna go with. Let's see, I had mine up here. Oh, this Egda Caroline. Saudade do tu beijo. Some Portuguese there for you. I already downloaded mine, but to download it, just go under where it says full multi-track and select the file size that we have here, right? Cool. So that goes into the downloads folder, but first let's go to our Pro Tools session. So I already made a Pro Tools session that's called exactly the title of the session, of the name of the song that I downloaded. Before you even start, do this for me. Go to File, Save As, and add an underscore, mix 1. We're going to be doing this throughout the entire class. We're going to make sure that we have a lineage of all the mixes that we've been doing, including the very first initial one, which might be the most important one. So we're going to say save. Now I have this mixed one. Now we have that old one that we hadn't had set up yet. We have this to be our actual session, right? So even before we import those multi-tracks, I want to do some things in the setup window. So go to Setup, Preferences, Processing, and make sure these two boxes are checked on your session. This will allow you to, one, copy files over on import, and that means they're going to copy to your audio files folder in your Pro Tools session folder. And then convert copied files to session format. This is going to allow Pro Tools to change the sample rate, change the bit depth so it matches the session, and you're not getting weird timing or pitch shifting changes on imported files or samples, okay? So I always have those checked off, okay? And then we're going to say, okay. If you have something that says all, if you have this all files checked off on this drag and drop area, turn that off because you don't want to import a tempo or have your tracks set to a certain tempo. So I'm going to say OK. And then we're going to navigate to my downloads folder. And you can see it's nice and clean. And then see we have our session that we unzipped here. We don't need to import this README, this text file at all, but everything below that we can. And there's a couple ways we can do it. We could go to the import file menu and go to audio and then search for it there and make sure it's all imported correctly. But we kind of bypass that step by changing our preferences here under processing. So what that allows us to do is do easy drag and drop, right? So I like to drag and drop into my tracks list. Reason why, I'm going to go here, click on the first one I want, hold down Shift, and click on the last one I want. If I were to drag it into the session window, into the edit window, wherever I drop in is where they're all going to be, where they're all going to live. I want it to just start at the very beginning of the session, so I'm going to drag into the tracks list, let go, and we have all the tracks lined up at the very beginning of our session here. Cool, and now while those are populating here, I want to solo through all these tracks and hear what's going on each one. Sometimes the names can be misleading, okay? So if I hit solo right now, see how they toggle on and stay on? I want to change that. I want to go to Options, Solo Mode, go to XOR. This will allow, when I click on the next solo, the other one will let go. The solo would be turned off, right? Really nice when you're trying to isolate individual tracks, okay? So I'm just going to select a portion of the song where every track is playing, at least a good amount of the tracks are playing. We're going to miss a couple here, but we'll be able to navigate to them. And then just start navigating through them, okay? So just to give you an example, let's see, this first track. Okay, great. Second. Definitely a kick drum. I'll save you guys some trouble here. The one that I found that needed like just to be renamed is the sample one. Sample gives us no indication as what kind of track this is. All right, so that's definitely a vocal sample. So I'm gonna double click on here to rename this, and I'm gonna title this vocal vocal rhythm. Let's say okay. Now I know exactly what that is, right? They might not, that might not make sense to you to name it that. If you find a better name, then all that matters is that it's very clear and that you know how to navigate to it. Okay. So we have all these tracks. Everything's having listened to this before. Everything is looking good here. The only thing I want to do now is make sure things are in the right spot, right? And it looks like everything is, as far as our percussion and guitars and other instruments. So next, what we want to do is I like to have the lead vocal at the very top of the session. And the reason why is just because I remember that it's up there. It's seemingly an important part of the song, since it does have the lyrics. Our ears are naturally drawn to the human voice. Just being humans, that's what we do. So I like to put it at the very top of the track. So since that's there, I want to now organize my session, organize all the tracks. Okay. So the way I first do that is making sure everything's color coded correctly. Not even correctly, just the way I like to have it color coded. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do all my percussive drum tracks. So I have this loop, and I'll even include this vocal rhythm since it's such a rhythmical part of the song. So I just clicked on the first one, shift clicked on the last one, double click on the color bar on the side, which will pop up the color menu or color window, and select the color that suits you. I like yellow for my tracks, for my percussion tracks. You'll see why in the modules why I like that color. But my eye just gets drawn to it, and drums are very important. The next thing is I like to have this box on. This colors the actual track itself. If that's off, see how it's just gray, and we just get the color bar here. I like to see it in multiple places here. So if we go to my mix window by hitting Command equals, you can see that's grayed there. Also, I like it fairly bright. Call me crazy. I want it saturated and I want it bright. Again, just things that make the tracks kind of stand out. Last but not least, this is my preference, but I find a lot of people tend to go this route. In your preferences, I like to see my clip colors be the same as my track colors. So I'm going to go to display and then go to default clip color and select track color. And now all my clips will be the same as my track color. Really nice way of just organizing everything and keeping things visually appealing. Next we have our basses. I'm going to click on the first one, shift click on the last one. And we're going to color these ones as well. So I'm gonna double click. I like brown for bases. I think of like an upright bass and big beautiful brown body of the bass. And then electric guitars. Again, some reason red always pops out to me. It always seems aggressive. It always seems like the guitars should be that made that color. We have this acoustic guitar. I'll color that differently because I'll treat it a little bit differently, but definitely still on the reddish spectrum. Um, yeah, just a little bit more neutral of a red, something like that. And then last but not least, our organ and synth. I'll color them the same way. They are very different in the way they're being used in the track, but the way they're going to be processed, we'll see how it goes. I may end up changing my mind there. But since I usually like to have kind of like a darker um, purple or sometimes a blue, just depending on the nature of the track. And then the lead vocal, I like to have a light purple or blue. It kind of sticks out to me and just reminds me, brings my eye there and reminds me like, hey, this is an important thing you should be aware of. All right. So now that we got our color coding done, I'm going to um, uh, first check my levels of my session. I do this a couple ways. I like to use the mix window for this because I have my faders and I can easily do it. Now you can see that my faders are like taking up my whole screen here, and it's getting a little cramped. I could drop this menu here, and then I have space for like one more track. But here's a nice little tip: to change the width of your tracks in your mix window, there's a key command for that. Do Option Command and the letter M. That minimizes your track, so you can have more available. And then if you can't read like what you're looking at, you can always open it up, Option Command M again, and just toggles them back and forth. So that's kind of nice to know. And I'm going to make a master fader. Okay, so I'm going to go to, I could go to track and make a new track, but of course we know our key commands. We do Shift Command N, right? But even fancier than that, remember we have our double click functions. Hold down Shift, double click, and you have a master fader. Whoops, I triple click, so I don't need two masters right now. Let's delete that. Just right click on the track, hit delete. Awesome. So I'm going to play it back at a section that where all the instruments are playing, maybe the loudest section. I usually think like the second chorus is usually, or the penultimate chorus is the loudest. I don't think I'm using that word right, but it's this part, I think. Cool. So we know that we're peaking. Awesome. I'm going to expand my tracks a little bit and just going to look at this master meter here. You can see down here, this always tells us the peak level of our tracks. And the master is getting overblown here by almost 4 dB of track level. So we know we're already, if we were to leave it like this and start mixing and start adding plugins, this mix will really get away from us. Okay, so what we're going to do is bring the level down of these tracks in order to make more headroom, make more space for us to mix. Okay, very easy early on before adding any effects or plugins or anything like that to do this. I'm going to show you a way to do that. If you open up your group menu here and click all, I'm going to drop these down pretty significantly, probably by about 10 dB. I'm just looking at the bottom of my graph here, and see I can't get exactly on 10 dB. That's because we're on coarse adjustment with our faders. If you want to go into fine adjustment, click on the fader, hold down Command, and then scroll up and down, and it'll go decimal by decimal, and you can get right spot on the money with what you need, right? But since we clicked all, and we also have a master fader, we also brought the master fader down. So I'm going to bring that back up to 0 by holding down Option and clicking the master fader. That'll snap the fader, and really any parameter, like either in a plugin or a pan knob, as I'm doing now, it will snap it back to the default setting. I'm going to clear this peak meter here and press play again. Cool, so we got like 6 dB of headroom. I'm going to drop it down just 2 more dB. Let's bring our all back here. Drop it down 2 dB. Let's use a command to bring it exactly. Okay, I'm such a perfectionist. What can I say? Turn off the all groups. Remember to turn that off. That'll get you into trouble. Option, click the master fader. Cool. And you might be thinking, oh, well, doesn't sound as good. Well, it's just lower. All you have to do is turn up the volume of your session, right? You can do that by if you're on a laptop, just turning the output up, turning your headphones up. Just kind of start to take note of where you're setting your levels on your headphones, so you can be a little more consistent with your level matching. Okay. I have a specific amount that I set my levels to, which I'll talk about later. But for right now, this is going to get us in a good ballpark of where we want to be. All right. Excellent. So we have all our tracks ready to go. The next thing I'd have you guys do is do a rough mix, just like this. No routing, no nothing. Just getting levels to sound right. Okay. You can do it just with the faders and the pan knobs. No effects, no inserts, no sends, no fancy routing or anything like that. Just with the faders. The way I would think to do that is listening to groups of these tracks together, and maybe setting the vocal level first. So if I was going to be doing this, just mixing the vocal in the right level, I'd do something like this. And obviously there's a sound that comes really high, which is this bass. I'd probably bring this down. Cool. And then just do a rough mix across the board. I would do a lot more than this. I would use some panning, especially on these electric guitars. And then even some automation. To get to your automation windows, you can, of course, click the automation window here and go to volume, or your track views, I should say, and then adjust your automation here. I'll talk all about automation in later classes, but this will get you started here. Okay. When you are done, make a bounce of your session by selecting your whole session. It can be like the longest track in your multi-tracks. Of course, you guys know how to make a bounce. I like to use the key command, Option Command B for bounce. So Option Command B for bounce. That brings up our bounce dialog box. And then we're just sending in MP3s for this class, just to save on importing, and we have less file build up in Canvas, and have it all interleaved. Make sure you're adding your first name to both the session and to your file itself. You can do it offline bounce or online bounce. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's a bounce. And then you'll upload that to the Canvas shell. There's more directions to follow, but this will get you through the first part of our session, right? Oh, and don't forget about um, grouping your tracks as well by selecting your tracks, Command G to open up the group dialog box, naming it something very boring and but descriptive, so that you can have ultimate control over the different sections of your song. Do that for the bass as well. Command G, bass. Now we have control of those two, and do that for all the different arrangements of your song. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we'll be meeting every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Also, my office hours are linked in the e-syllabus if you ever need to catch me. Also, you can just send me a quick email. If you want to crowdsource your question, go to the chat in Canvas and ask your fellow classmates and see if they're experiencing the same issues, or you might have a solution that you can help them solve. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you soon. Take care.